With us today is a candidate for the Florida House of Representatives, to represent a portion of Duval County, Jacksonville. She is an attorney. She has served on the Duval County School Board 2 terms, I believe, and has served 2 terms on the Jacksonville City Council and served on various committees on both local legislative bodies. Thank you for joining us today, Brenda.
Thank you for having me.
Well, the obvious question: why are we running for the House of Representatives? What do you view is at stake here?
I think really the quality of life for neighbors, businesses, and nonprofits in Florida House District 13 is at stake. Getting their fair share of budgetary appropriations to address the quality of life issues that we've talked about. And I want to share and correct something you shared. I served 1 term on the city council. I did not run for re-election. I did not support the redistricting litigation that basically compressed, packed 85 to 87% of Black neighbors in City Council District 10. Mm-hmm. I took the principal position on that. I think it was unfair, stripping them from 7, 8, and 9. And so what's unique about this district is it actually tracks my old City Council District 10.
Oh, okay. All right.
Side of I-295 and goes to the southwest, turns side up to 103rd Street and loops around Riverside, Avondale, and EWU. So that was the attraction. I built a rapport with those neighbors and businesses and nonprofits in the area, and I think we can do some good work together.
All right, sounds good. And of course, you're used to litigation, and that gerrymandering districts has become quite a thing these days, and it pays to know exactly what's going on. Now, obviously, I'll say almost the same as on the city council. If elected, you'll be going into the same thing in Tallahassee, where Democrats are in the minority, and things have to be compromised or put into other legislation in order to get anything decent for your district. And we have an ultra conservative state legislature. There's no question about that, and the governor has shown his hands. What techniques do you have? What gifts do you have in order to get something passed that'll be meaningful for the district?
Well, I think the track record. So just calling to remembrance, when I was on the school board, I was in the minority party then as a Democrat. Okay, so there were times when I was on the school board, there were 2 of us that were Democrats, and the other 5 were Republicans. I think we had 3 when Tommy Hazouri was on. So at that time, similarly, when I was on the city council, I was in the minority party. You find the touch points of agreement. And Fred, what I'm gifted with doing, I'm an attorney. I've actually been a practicing attorney 29 years. I just celebrated my anniversary on August the 7th of this year. I started practicing on August the 7th of 1995 as an assistant public defender. So I kind of look at all of my service through a legal lens. So I tried to find out where you can get in to be able to get legislation that advances those priorities that improve the quality of life for neighbors. So I was able to do that by filing a resolution to stop the ITN. That's what we did to stop the sale of JEA. I was able to do something that was a little known, rarely if ever used strategy in de-appropriating funding for a capital improvement project in City Council District 10 for what was called the Sutel Drive traffic calming or road diet.
Yeah.
Usually those capital improvement projects rolled to the next project in another district. What I did as an attorney was I de-appropriated the funding from that project and reappropriated to infrastructure projects throughout City Council District 10. So those are the kind of strategies that I plan to employ. And I think if you find the touch points of agreement with other legislators, right? If you find those things that you want to do, I want to do for Florida House District 13, and then I work in a collaborative spirit with the other legislators in this area. So whether it's Wyman Duggan or Kimberly Daniels, any of the others that surround the area, then I think that we'll be able to changes that I did on city council and school board.
Well, I guess you've named a few things there, but if you were to pick, let's say 3 out of the things that you want to get done in your first term in the legislature, what are the top 3 things that you'd like to get done?
Okay, one of the first things is I want a renewed focus on education and making certain that we have funding consistent and appropriate with high quality educational options for parents, right? And so I want to make certain that those charters that we have in Jacksonville, right? We do have charters or public schools, that all of them are being equity funded and supported, which is not currently happening. So that would be one thing. Okay. The second thing is, if we look at economic opportunities, one of the things that I pushed on city council, which I'll push in the legislature, is a residency requirement for economic incentive packages to bring businesses to town. What does that mean? We know that if we have offer an economic incentive, it's often based on the tax base of those who already live here as residents, right?
Right.
So we should dedicate a certain percentage of jobs for the individuals who are already living in the area. So that's another thing I want to focus on in terms of that. So that would be the second. And then the third thing, I want to make certain that we look at the infrastructure. Florida House District 13, you know, they have their problems related to septic tank. Is still an expansion of what I focused on city council. We have flooding issues in that area. I mean, and so those are some of the things that I hope to be able to work on in the first 2 years.
Well, we've got a couple of things that are coming up. Let me ask you a couple of amendments that are going to be on there, but one in particular. Where do you stand on Amendment 3, the legalization of marijuana?
I support Amendment 3. I support it. I support the legalization of marijuana. I started off as a public defender, right? So I'll share with you that I believe that that the low-lying, drug offenses that have found many in their snare. We already have medical marijuana. I believe that that's caused the trajectory of many lives to go off track, right? And not positively. So I don't personally have a problem with the legalization of marijuana. I think that there's economic incentives that are connected with that for those that will be involved in the industry that were not necessarily as open in the medicinal marijuana industry. And it has been shown that, contrary to some belief, marijuana is not truly a gateway drug to anything else. If you're going to engage in other drugs, that's really a separate issue for that. So I support Amendment 3.
Now, there are going to be some amendments, laws attempted to be passed, probably some are already in place to have to do, and a number of conservative-leaning candidates, particularly the ones that we see on television up here out of St. Johns County, that are running for the state legislature. They're pushing this business heavily about illegal immigrants getting jobs, and the fact that several liberal and Democrat candidates, politicians, are supporting jobs that these illegal immigrants are taking from Americans. How do you view this business of immigrants in and around Florida and their impact on our economy?
Well, I don't believe we have an illegal immigrant problem in the state of Florida. I think that they have solutions in search of problems, right? That's not the issue that we have in the state. And we are a state and a country founded with immigrants, those who are enslaved, and the indigenous that were here. So, but for immigrants, I don't know that there would be these United States of America, right? So we know it's the greatest country in the world to live. So we don't want to deny the opportunities of those others who want to come in our country and live here. So again, we are a peninsula. we don't need a border wall. We have the Atlantic Ocean and the Gulf.
Yeah.
So I don't see that. And I will tell you that one of the things that's happened with in the level of more recent passing of legislation in the state is that it's created an undue burden on certain industries in the state of Florida that they don't have employees and workers, right? So they don't have workers because we've created an onerous system of employment verification that has detrimentally impacted our migrant employees that we usually have in the state. So we've got to look to rectify some of that because it is significantly compromising our economy in the state and negatively impacting work.
Yeah, we'd have a severe lack of workers if it weren't for the, quote, immigrant population that is, quote, taking all of the jobs. Because ask anybody that's had a roof replacement done recently. One of the first set of workers that are on there stripping the wood and the old roofing material off are often immigrant workers who are speaking Spanish for the most part. And so it goes in a number of issues that companies are hiring them. That's the irony of it. They're hiring them either as independent contractors, but they're hiring them. But yet we have this scare tactic going around that there's so many jobs being taken from them, and I simply don't see it. But nonetheless, I can expect you can expect some more legislation, right, I would imagine, to come forth to make it more difficult to get a green card, to live and work in a freer country that they're coming from. So I'm hoping that folks like yourself will be able to stand up to that and keep it at bay.
That's my hope. And I think a lot of the businesses and industries that have been negatively impacted, they want to see change. They really do, because it's, again, we have overcorrected in some ways. You follow me? Yeah. Seriously, and you've got to meet in the middle, right? You've got to meet in the middle. We must have a reasonable path to American citizenship. It should not be overly burdensome. At the same time, we have to acknowledge the realities of our economy and how our economy is already structured. So our economy is already structured with a great migrant population of workers. Those are the facts. And, whether we talk about that, the same thing we could talk about with young people, as it relates to why do we allow young people in the state of Florida to drop out of high school at the age of 16? Well, you'd be fascinated to probably know that one of the greatest supporters of that is the tourism industry. They want the cheap labor. When I was on the school board, I went down and said, if you need to be 18 to register for the draft and vote, you need to be 18 to drop out of school. What would you want to be held by any decisions you made at 16, Fred? I wouldn't want to be, right? No. So, yes.
One of the things that you also were wrestling with, it hasn't gone all over the place yet, but it is still there, and Jacksonville has been affected by it. And that's this business of home rule. A number of things. One of the things that I see coming out of that financially is the fact that there's increasing legislation. In fact, it's pretty much already happened now, that would give the private school and the for-profit school industry more access to tax dollars, which in effect takes money from the public school system. And we're seeing that here in Duval County. Is there anything that you see that can limit this raid on public funds to private companies? If you want to start a company, fine. It used to be you want to start a company, fine. You do it with private dollars. But now we're talking about companies starting schools and looking to feed off of those public dollars. Yeah, some of the money goes to the parents in the form of a grant, but it's still rating the public school funding. Is there anything that can be done about this?
I think so. I think we've got to tighten it up. I mean, so there's one thing I think that we have in our public education. We want a high quality public education system. So we look at that with the traditional public comprehensive schools in the 67 counties. And we've had charters, public charters on the books since 1996, 1997. I think that's the formula that we use. That's the robustness that we need in place. I am not a proponent of divesting public education for private schools, because the schools are not required to accept and educate all young people equally.
Now,
and so, pardon me?
Go ahead.
Yeah, they're not required private schools are not required to accept and educate all young people equally. So there is a history of which young people are accepted and which ones are not. Perhaps if you lack any athletic skills and you may have some other academic challenges, you might not make it to some of these other schools. And so what's sad about what's happening with our divestment of public education dollars, and I want folks to understand, this didn't just start happening. This actually happened with the creation of the Florida Lottery, which was supposed to be an addition to public education, not supplanting public education dollars. And I would tell you, if you think about the bright futures and some of those things, I think that is the greatest middle class subsidy for education for those of us who young people qualify for it that we've ever seen. So I think we got to look at kind of everything and make certain that those ladders of opportunity to high quality public education remain accessible to all young people, because that was the original intent in the framing and the priority giving public education in our charter, in our Constitution.
All right. Now, obviously you're running, you have an opponent. Now, I know you don't necessarily want to speak ill of your opponent, but what separates you? Why should I go for Brenda Priestley Jackson instead of your opponent? Both of you are in the same political party, but what separates you from your opponent?
My record of effectiveness. I've been effective with getting legislation advanced and receiving funding appropriations. And aside from Ms. Nixon and I, Ms. Nixon was born the year I registered to vote. The late Lloyd Pearson registered me to vote at Rebound High School, sent it to my house to my dad, and he mailed it to me at Grambling State University. Okay. So I bring that long lens of what works, what has been effective for me to work with others in elected office. And the role of a legislator is a job. It's a job. And so it's not community service. It's a job. You elect someone and say, these are the issues that I have. This is what I want to see improved. And you make a commitment to neighbors, businesses, and nonprofits. You're going to work on that. I created something called the District 10 Neighbors Advisory Council, Fred, when I was on the city council, first ever done. We went through strategic planning with neighbors in City Council District 10 with John Fryer. 4 meetings of that. That's the same strategy I will employ when I get on elected in faith to Florida House District 13. And so if you want someone who has a record of effectiveness, working with others, being able to reach across the aisle and line and not compromise a principle. I've never compromised a principle. Then I'm the person that could do that. If you want someone who's more prone to protest and posturing and choosing to name call the governor and others, and let me be clear, I was asked at a forum recently, governor, and I shared my opinions about the governor as it relates to Brenda Alexis Priestley Jackson, the individual. We did not benefit from slavery. My ancestors were enslaved in Fernandina Beach. I wish my daughter could have taken AP African-American history. She had to take honors African-American history. I can separate those policies that I think engage in culture wars from what I need to do as an elected official. So you would never call the person who has line item veto authority a disparaging name, because that impacts the quality of life for the neighbors you've been elected to serve. So you have to subvert yourself. So I think a little more wisdom and a little time, you understand that. I was laughing and thinking about when I first ran for elected office, which was actually 1999. Oh, I was probably far more to the left at that time. Right now, I'm just a little left of center. And that's what life teaches you. Life's about compromising and being able to work well with others and trying to do that to improve the quality of life.
All right. The winner of the primary election that is coming up shortly will effectively be the next legislator serve in the Florida House of Representatives, and that's District 13, right?
Yes, Florida House District 13.
Final words.
I asked neighbors, if you've liked what I did on City Council and the school board, I'd ask you to have your vote again and your trust, and together we will serve to improve the quality of life.
All right. Brenda Alexis Priestley Jackson, attorney at law. Brenda, I thank you for your time and good luck on the remaining days of the campaign trail. We'll look to talk to you once you get sworn in.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.